Coopers, the stripper that gets it off every time. Probably getting sick of that by now. Hi everybody, I'm Simon from Cooper's Strip Club, and today we're doing exterior windows. And so I've just scooped down to the wood there. So I want to take you through it all, and so you know what to do. So this piece here hasn't got any stripper on, so we start by putting the stripper on, of course. So our stripper is a very thin product, and it's thin so it absorbs, and so it goes on, and then we leave it to do its thing. Now there's lots and lots of different types of paint. So there's your acrylic paints, there's enamel paints, there's lead paints, and many more, and they all react differently to paint stripper. Some of them bubble, like this sort of stuff, and other times they will just dissolve, and other times they'll look like they're doing nothing, but they're actually, the lead paints tend to go like a paste. So anyway, often people ask us how many coats of paint will our stripper go through in one application, and it's a reasonable question, but it all depends on what paint is on there. For instance, if you've got this type of enamel paint that does the big blisters, it pulls itself away from the other layers. So if we were to say it does 20 coats of paint in one hit, we'd just be leading you astray. So what we say is there is no paint that it won't strip. In near on 40 years, we're yet to find a paint it won't strip. So you put it on, and you leave it to go through. And while it's going through, we keep it wet. And we mean wet with the stripper. So we would put more stripper on top, unless you get a blister. So I'll just grab my brush up. And this is really important. If I keep pouring stripper on top of these big blisters, I'm just going to throw product away. So part one, strip what's on the surface. So there's this, put the stripper on, wait for it to do its thing, keep the surface wet with more stripper, and then in the second bit of red it says remove large blisters. If they appear, then reapply stripper if required. Well, that's a large blister, of course, so we need to get rid of it. So we would go like that, and it's not unusual at all that it didn't go down to the surface like the other one because of the blisters. So we just take off what's easy. And then we zap on more product. So that, as the guide says, take off blisters and then reapply if required. So yes, it is required, so on it goes. And so every job has got its own quirks. We're always asked about what's it do to glass and what's it do to putty. On glass that's not coated with some, sometimes people get these like Perspex-y looking things put over for the UV. It'll kill that, but as long as it's solid glass, doesn't matter if it's coloured or clear, does no damage. The putty, often again asked about putty. The new putty, like putty that still has oil that's reasonably fresh in it, say over the first couple of years, it'll just dissolve the putty out. Old putty that's well cured, it just doesn't do anything to it, it just cleans it. So you'll see this is a good way of protecting that, as stripping that as well. So we just zip along there. Now this blade I'm using, we call it a 4-edged blade. And it's because it's got 4 edges. Funny that. So, you've got these 2 long edges and you've got these 2 short edges. When you're doing this sort of work, the long edge is ideal because it has these extensions off the end. And that way I can put it right into there, so it goes right into the corner. But these aren't sharp in the edges there, so it's not going to gouge in. So that's all on there. So we've taken this down to the surface, so we're getting off what's on the wood. Goes right up, the blades go right up into the corners. So we'll just what we say on the guide for part 2 to get out what's in the wood. Now again, if you've got anybody you think might be interested in what we're on about, if you can share this video with them, that would be appreciated. Anywhere in the world, we ship our products worldwide, online, and we do it air freight, so you don't have to wait months, it's only just a few days. Okay, so that's got the stripper back on. So part 2, it says strip what's in the surface. And so let's get this on and in thing sorted out. So when the person made this window, they sanded it. So this is a sanded window with paint over the top. So the very first coat of paint soaked into the grain, and then the other coats went on top. So we've taken off the stuff that's lurking on top. Now we're to the most important one, and that's the one on the grain itself. And so we put it on, wait a couple of minutes, and then we're going to give it a scrub. So I'll come back to that. Now, over here, we have another sash. And we did a video on this on the other side of it, where the lead on this one was extremely brittle. It had really dried, almost like it was metal. And it took an extra 10-20 minutes to soften. And as we do our stripping around the country, we find different areas have paint that's actually better than other areas. Palmerston North, for instance, has really hard paint, and it takes longer to soak through than in other areas. Because in the old days, people actually made a lot of the painters would actually make their own paint up. So things do differ. Now it's got a little bit of a crunch, but not too bad. So both these sashes were sprayed at the same time. They were on about, I suppose, about 20 minutes before we went on line. And it just shows how some things just need more time. And on our guide, we have written in the ultra small print over here, where it says paint 5 to 60 minutes. So what we're saying is that it just takes different time depending on what paint you're stripping. Sounds reasonable. Okay, and again over here, we've got the bubbles. Once you get bubbles, it's just really a waste of time leaving them there. It's good practice to get rid of them and then whack on more stripper. And this is part of the economy of the product. If you put on a really big, thick, heavy coated gel, most of it ends up in the bin. You haven't actually got the use of it. We discovered that a thin stripper absorbs in, so you get a better strip from it, but if you do a couple of puffs and then get the big blisters you saw at the start, then it's best to get rid of it and then go in with more stripper. You actually end up using way less product. So that's there. Back over to here, where I started. Right, this is all from the time you guys started watching. And on we go again. I want to show you what lead looks like. This yellowy layer down here, that's lead. And you'll notice that it's not blistering. The white stuff on top is blistering, and that is likely not to be lead. This stuff at the bottom here, it goes like a paste. That is not, that is lead. But providing it's all wet and doesn't go into dust, then you're fine. It's there's a whole thing, and again, it comes down to when you sand anything, it doesn't matter whether it's acrylic, enamel, or lead. If you breathe granulated paint, it can't be good for you. So that's over there soaking. This is here soaking. We'll just do a little test. The reason I did 2 sashes today is I also want to show you that while you're working on one, the next one can be working along. These are sort of sample sizes I'm showing you on. But you very quickly at every project, because another question we often get is, how much do you do at a time? And it really comes down to what you're comfortable with. You very quickly will find out how far you can strip before you're out of control. And I'll just have some on there as well. So I'll just give that a minute. I want to show you our big window. This is one of our display windows. We've had at many home shows. This is a real gnarly window. All this old paint, you can see it's all came apart, and the new paints on top just couldn't hold on to the lead, they just cracked up. And where we're stripped, this has all been done without a sander. There is no sanding in our system at all, and it's quite amazing what it can do. And if you were actually here, you could feel there's this huge layer of paint going down to the wood, and it's all about giving the product the amount of time, and that's what we're trying to demonstrate today is if you give it its time, it'll do the work for you. So, let's go and do part 2. So, part 2 is stripping out of the grain itself. As we've said, stripper on, wait a couple of minutes, we've been longer than that. Then it says scrub with the correct scrubbing material. Now often when you watch our videos, you'll see us using steel wool. But when you do an exterior surface, if you use steel wool, you're going to get little bits caught and you'll get rust coming through the new paint, which is not a good look, these little black dots. So what we do is we get our grit embedded pad, which is a English product. It's like a nylon with a grit that's put into it. And we're not using it to sand, we're using it to get into the sandpaper marks. As we said, when it was made, it was sanded. So let's get our light. So this is being stripped for repainting, and often people would look at this before and go, oh, I'll just give a light sand and paint over top. I call that band-aid stripping. You work on a wish and a prayer, and you spend all this time doing all that work and painting, and then you just find that it fails. Okay. Now, this is an interesting tool, our broad knife, putty knife. It's got this little saw edge in it. And we've had that put in. It's an American blade. And we use it to slice into these parts. So the paint sort of got it built up in there. So we just slice that, grab the stripper again, and it'll go into there. I'll come back to that in a moment. Just wanted to put a bit more on top. That was, had drunk the paint in deep. And on that putty there. So you go backwards and forwards, depending on what you're discovering. And then still, I think, a little bit soon for that. So we'll leave that. We'll focus on down here. So what you need for a successful job where when you put paint on it's not going to peel off is you need a clean, dry, absorbent surface. And so what we do is we now move on to part 3. You don't wait till tomorrow to do this. While all these residues in the wood are soft, you want to take advantage of them right now. So we get ourselves a clean pad, and we now use this blue one. This is our flusher. It's a paraffin-based rinse, and we use this rather than meths or thinners because it gives us more scrubbing time. The paraffin-based spirit stays wetter for longer. So you spray and you scrub, and then you spray.
The hose is backwards.
Sorry.
There, it's taping in it.
Alright. Good point. I'll explain what Arthur meant by that in a moment. Spray, scrub, spray, wipe. Now, that is a surface that's ready for paint. I mean, it's that good. If you wanted a clear finish, that's what you're going to get. If you were putting a clear finish on this, that's the finish you're going to get. It's the colour you're going to get. So that's there. We haven't worked hard to get that. It's just what's there. If you are stripping this for the reason of painting, we're often told that, oh, it's just you don't need to go that far. Well, it actually isn't hard to get that far. The thing we've got here is a clean, dry, absorbent surface, and that's what new paint needs to succeed. Now what Arthur was just saying is I was spraying and I was sucking air, and it was because the tube that goes down into this, it's longer than the bottle for a good reason. We push it in and on it goes, and then there's the end of the tube's there, so if I'm spraying downhill it'll suck to the last drop basically, but if it's around this way and the little tube's at the top, it's going to suck air quite quickly and not be good. So that's that one done there. And you don't do pieces patch by patch, you do this whole sash at a time. Okay, over here, we've got the same game going. But this time I'm going to use one of our detail brushes. We've got one of our brushes, and where I cut into the edge before, into the sash, we just use that to get into there. So that's all been softened there, and we get our pad. And then again on with the flush. So in this case, this is a cedar sash, and sashes are always made out of stable timber so they don't warp, and cedar is very good. The other sash I was working on was a totara one, which is also very stable. So, spray scrub, spray, wipe. If you don't flush, you sand. And why sand when it's so easy to do the flushing? So that one there is again ready where we first started when you came online. We've got down the end here, wait for the camera, you can see that that's all, you can see that the lead's not a drama if you keep it wet. Okay, now over to this other side. Oh yeah, that. Most of that crunch is now gone. I often say to people, if you are boiling spuds, the big ones take longer to soften than the little ones. So it's a little bit like that here. Teeny bit there. Now, while that finishes, so you can see the way of the stripping is simple. It's take off what's on top, then take off what goes into the grain, and then rinse it clean, and reuse the sanding that already exists. Now with windows, it's nice to be able to take a sash out and put it on a bench, but if you look at the window over here, it's usually bolted into the wall itself, so you've got to protect things that are like weatherboards and stuff. So I want to show you quickly our masking solution. Now there is a tutorial on this online, and so if you imagine this window is in, you're going to be stripping this, but you don't want to damage what's over here, then you would get this masking This is a pre-taped masking film, and you would run this up the side, across the top, and down the other side, and this unravels, and it's sort of got like a static, and onto the wall it goes. And this is a stripper-proof solution. It's 550 wide on this roll, and it's 15 meters long. This tape is a bit like a duct tape weave, and that's ideal. Now, under the window itself, 0.5 meter is just not going to be good enough. So we have a second roll that's 2.4 meters wide. So this one would go under the window, would go down the wall and on the ground. So everything you're taking off. There's one thing is it's nice to take lead paint off safely for you, but you don't want it dropping into the ground. So everything just falls onto the ground, and at the end you just wrap it all up. So there's absolutely nothing going into the environment. We're all obviously interested in our environment, and if you've got lead paint going onto the dirt and then you plant your veggies on it, it's not a good look for the people eating the veggies, that is. So all goes onto the plastic, wraps it all up at the end of it. The weatherboards haven't been hurt, and everything's collected up. Now, so that's that. Oh, this absorbent thing I was talking about earlier. So this is absorbency. When you have a big colour change like that, that is your surface is absorbent, and if you're putting a primer on, of course the primer is going to go deep, and that is how your finish works. And what else did I have up in my little notes? One of the things is how much stripper would you use? This slice through here would use about 3/4 of a litre of stripper. Of course, if you don't have the fan light on top, you're going to use less. Like from here down, it's probably more like 1/2 litre. Our product goes about 10 times the distance of a normal gel. Now, if you're interested in any of the products, if you go to our website, cooperstripclub.com, you'll go to the shop page and you'll see all the products and their prices and all those things. And as I said before, we ship worldwide online through aeroplanes. And I think that's it. So we'll see you again tomorrow, same time, different place, and we'll see what we can find to show you on there. And if you have any questions, just pop them through, little comments underneath, and we'll answer them to your satisfaction. Cheers.